Welcome back to the Wise Practice Podcast. I am so glad that you're here with me today. I know there's lots of different things and shows that you could be listening to, and you choose to be with me, and it means the world to me. Before we dive into this episode, I just want to acknowledge something. If you're a practice owner, you're probably listening to this episode while you're doing something else. You hear me? I usually listen to podcasts when I'm running, but sometimes when I'm driving. So you might be maybe doing something else, answering emails, walking between meetings. Maybe you're listening and you were also just thinking about all the to-dos that you have within your practice or what you're going to be doing when you're done listening. So this episode isn't just another strategy, but it's a time for us to look at why Lent matters for practice owners. And I start with this example because we are always on the go as entrepreneurs. I feel it. Another task on our plate. We do not want this to be that. We don't want listening to the show to just be another thing, but I want this to be a moment where we reflect together, right? Because that is what it's about. We want to slow down and pay attention. How the season is actually unfolding, how your faith is moving throughout your life in the middle of all the different things that you are carrying as a practice owner. So take a breath, maybe pause, and let's dive into it. So ever since this year started, when I ask people, how you doing? How's the new year going? I'm commonly told, I'm busy. We hit the ground running this year, right? So January, it kind of has a way of doing that, right? So we have these goals, these numbers, we have all these good intentions in the sense that we're going to start strong, right? I rested, I'm ready. So we spend the holidays reflecting, being quiet, and then we get into January and it is crazy. Just one of my therapists the other day, she said, "Oh, I have so many clients this week." And this was the week and back into the new year because everybody was wanting to get in, right? And so you probably felt the same way. All your clients wanting to get back on your caseload, all the to-dos within your practice. It's also the time that all the taxes are due in January. It's a lot to handle, right? And so we have all these great intentions going into the new year. We figured out these are my goals. Here's how I'm going to interact with my family. Here are the boundaries I'm going to set at work. But then things get away from us. And sometimes we feel like we're chasing it down. We're almost like chasing down our lives, right? Because it piles up the intakes, the client needs, the staff needs, the emails. It's a lot to run a practice. You're trying to set a tone for the year, but you already feel like you're carrying such a heavy load. And I speak this from experience. You feel like you're hitting the ground running. And at first, it sounds admirable. Yes, I got this. But over time, it starts to really weigh on us. Then we never really pause the way we thought we would. We don't make time for reflection. And we keep running. Things keep coming at us. I know for myself, contemplation and meditation have been something I want to do this year because I know it will allow me to be a better leader in my practice. So those were my intentions going into the year. And then the tasks started adding up and I got into my do mode. And I have to force myself to slow down, right? Sometimes for me, it's having something that makes me slow down. If that's accountability through someone, if it's some kind of book I'm reading, I'm setting my alarm for a certain time to get up, whatever that is. So I'm currently recording this episode in January, even though it's going to be coming out in February. So January starts strong, but it's not too busy with clients, at least historically in my practice. It's not like we have some intakes, but it's not overwhelming. But when we get into February and March especially, wow, it's some of the busiest seasons of the year, at least for my practice and for other mental health professionals that I talk to. So client needs are higher, and in general, not just more clients, but the caliber or intensity level maybe of what's coming from our clients in sessions. It's more than we're used to, right? It's a tough time of year. There's more complexity. There's also more leadership demands. So for many of us, the first part of the year, we're trying to settle in. Things become chaotic. And then we start bracing ourselves for what's coming. This is why it's more important than ever that we're creating those rhythms of reflection and slowing down. So I know I might sound like a broken record, but I want us to embrace this together. In fact, as a practice owner, I find that I need that structure in my life. So this is why we're going to talk about Lent and why Lent matters to practice owners. Not as something extra on your full plate, but this is an invitation for change, an invitation for rest from your busyness. Lent arrives right when many of us are tempted to go faster, right? What I was saying, the busy season. This year, Lent is Ash Wednesday, is the beginning of Lent, and that's on February 14th. So right in the middle of when things start getting busy. So instead of doing more, we are going to have to be intentional about slowing down and making space. Now, I can tell you, when I was young, I didn't necessarily know what Lent was. Lent was not a regular occurrence in my church growing up. But as I got older and attended different churches, different places in my life, different states that I lived in, they were all doing it differently. And one church that I went to introduced me to Lent, and it really is a season in the liturgical calendar. I love history and the church and just the seasons of the liturgical calendar, right? So when I say liturgical calendar, I'm kind of talking about like the church calendar, really. And it's a historical thing. I mean, people have been practicing Lent for centuries. And so I think it's so cool, this idea that I am practicing Lent at the same time as Christians all over the world, and as Christians have for many years. So let's talk a little bit about what Lent is, just in case you don't know, or maybe it's been a little while and you need a refresher. Lent is the season from Ash Wednesday to Easter. It's this idea that we are moving towards the resurrection, towards the cross, and we're remembering Jesus's time spent on the earth doing ministry. It is 40 days. Now you might be saying, hey, well, if you really count it up, it's more than 40 days. This is true. So when we look at Lent, we're looking at the days of the week plus Saturday, excluding Sunday. So really, it's more like 46 days, I believe. Sundays are considered mini Easters. So those are times that we celebrate the resurrection while we're on our Lent journey, right? So historically, Lent is a time of reflection and repentance as we prepare for Christ. And we remember his road to the cross, the sacrifice he made. And then that brings us to that place of, repentance and understanding in our hearts. Now, it is not a time that you have to earn God's love or you have to do something for God. Those pressures are not on you. Think of it as an invitation to pay more attention to God's presence in your life and how he wants to do a work within you, right? In this rhythm of the church year, the Lent comes after that busy celebration of the early calendar. So after you've gone through Christmas and you've celebrated, and then we have Epiphany, and these are all exciting times. And then we start leading up to Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you remember from ashes you came and from ashes you will go. I love the Ash Wednesday service. And the tradition of a lot of churches, the palms from Palm Sunday are burned and created into ashes and held onto for the next Ash Wednesday. And then you put the cross on the forehead and remember who we are and what we're entering into. So it reminds us of intentionally slowing down and really we're nothing, right? Becoming nothing, because all we are is what Christ makes us. And Lent often goes along with fasting. So letting go of the things that keep you from God, potentially, or things that are going to allow you to think about God. Fasting can look like lots of different things. And in our next episode, we're going to go a lot more in depth of what it looks like to practice Lent. So I'm not going to get too into that today, but I want you to be thinking about that now and be in prayerful reflection of Okay, God, what are the things that are holding me back in my relationship with you? Maybe things that distract me, or what are some things I want to pull out of my life or add to my life so that it pulls me closer to you, right? It's about creating space and doing something that's going to make you think more about God and his work in your life. And like I said, Sundays are the days that you celebrate. And so technically, you would break your fast every Sunday during Lent so that you could celebrate. So, Lent, again, is not about punishment. It's about getting more discipline, focusing more on God, and bringing him more into your life. It's about having reflection, but also that full plate we were talking about. A lot of times when we slow down and pay attention, we start noticing that there's some things on that plate we don't need. Either that we don't have to do, that we can give to somebody else, or maybe that just aren't all that important. So the heart of Lent is about creating space to notice how God is creating us, paying attention to what he's already doing, making yourself open and available for listening down and the things that he wants to do in and through you. Loosening your grip on things. As entrepreneurs, we carry a lot, so we need to let go of some things and depend on God. So, honestly, what matters even more is that all these people are depending on you. All these decisions are you're carrying the weight on your shoulders. We start to get really focused on productivity and we lose sight of what's important. So, this Lenten season is a time to come back to what's important in your life. So, as practice owners, we're always in motion, always planning, always doing, and we hold that emotional weight. So, Lent is when we are going to be countercultural leaders, giving ourselves that permission to pause, to slow down and reflect. Because often, even as I talked about in the series in January, it's when we slow down that God does more, right? In and through us. And it's a time for you to ask yourself, who am I becoming through this work I'm doing? When you're just doing the work, you are becoming something. You might not be paying attention to what you're becoming. So slow down and pay attention to who it is that you're becoming. One of the most subtle dangers for us as practice owners is letting faith become something that we're just referencing rather than something that's actually forming us. So we're just kind of saying the things. I am big on that. I I say the things. I don't always do the things. I'm trying to do the things. But Lent is a time where I am going to slow down and think about those things, right? So this is why I wrote a Lent devotional book, right? I love the liturgical calendar, and a Lent devotional book goes along with that. And as Christian practice owners, we can all do this book together. And the book has times of reflecting, it has times of the Bible verses, questions, journal prompts. And so if you're like me, where you're kind of needing structure to be able to do Lent, this devotional book will give you that structure because I have to have that to be able to engage, right? I need to know that people are doing it with me. That extra support means a lot to me. And remember, this book was specifically written for practice owners. So together we're going to move towards the cross together. So each devotional book, like I said, it's short, it's intentional, and it's every day except for it's every day except for Sunday. But I did add in Easter because y'all, we got to celebrate Easter together, right? So, how does the practice of becoming, the Lent devotional book, help you as a practice owner? It's going to give you grounding when you're feeling urgency. So it's a daily reminder to sit down. You could probably read it in less than 10 minutes. I would encourage you to give it 20 minutes so that you're reading it and reflecting. It's going to give you reflection questions to think about as a practice owner and changes that you can make in your business that go along with your faith. And it's going to give us a slower, steadier posture to the work that we do. Lent is not about doing more. It's about being led by God and being attentive. So when you give yourself that permission to slow down, God will do great things within you and within your practice. So I want you to see Lent as an invitation, not forced upon you. It's a season of slowing down and reflecting and letting faith influence your leadership in quieter. If you've ever felt like you're leading well on the outside, but you're longing for more grounding on the inside, Lent is a really good time for that. So I would love for you to walk with us through Lent together. And you can do that through the Practice of Becoming Lent devotional book. My hope it's not just another book, but that it has great impact in your life and that God uses it to ground you and teach you and grow you, and that we would all grow together as we share with one another how God is working in us through these devotionals. So before you go, I encourage you, head over to Amazon and grab the Practice of Becoming. Between now and next week, start thinking about how you want to do Lent, what that means to you. Maybe you want to research a little bit about Lent. I think it's such a beautiful season. It's not easy, it's challenging. And on our next episode, we are going to talk more about those practical steps. But I invite you to this special season, the sacred work, the liturgy of it all, and that we do it together. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to being with you next week.